Welcome back, my vinyl friends. You're here at Vinyl Latte. I'm Louis V. I'm your host, and today we're going to be talking about some of my latest vinyl hauls. I collected a whole bunch of new records that I'm excited to share with you, and if you're new to the channel, then you do not know that my tastes tend to span across a variety of genres. I have some classic rock, we have some pop records, jazz records, and everything in between, including hip-hop. So I'm excited to share with you some of my latest finds, and as normal, I like to just go ahead and dive right into it. Starting out with Vince Guaraldi's Trios. This is the Jazz Impressions of Black Orpheus. This is the one where you have the fantastic song Cast Your Fate to the Wind, which became a surprise hit off of this album, earning Guaraldi a Grammy Award. Now, this was originally recorded in San Francisco in November of 1961 and February of 1962. This is the craft pressing limited edition. It is a one-step process pressed at RTI utilizing the Neurotech VR900 compound for the vinyl. It's an all-analog mastering by Bernie Grudman, and it's done from the original master tapes. There are some liner notes as well from Derek Bang. If you're not familiar of who Derek is, he is the foremost Guaraldi historian. This is a special edition from Kraft. This is their limited hi-fi pressing, so it's sort of housed in this foil stamped, linen wrapped slipcase. It's numbered edition. There's only 3,000 of these pressed. This is 1,161. I gotta tell you, it's a good sounding album. They did a really great job on this particular album. Acoustically, it sounds phenomenal. It's got really good dynamics. It's got a large sound stage. The instruments pop out. There's great separation between them. Discogs gives it a 4.88. I'm not sure if it's really a near perfect record, a near 5 record to me. I feel like maybe I'd be more on a 4.5 realm. I know that some people, they tend to take some of these limited editions and they rate them a little bit higher to create them a little bit more collectible. I feel like that might be going on here, but no doubt this is definitely a stellar pressing of this particular album, one that I was very happy to add to my collection. In the same vein, this is the Relaxing with the Miles Davis Quintet from Miles Davis. Quintet, of course. There was 4 albums in this series. There was this one, Steamin', Working, and Cookin'. So I'm working on trying to get a definitive copy of every one of these albums in the series. I've been collecting them through. I've been finding it hard to find a really nice clean OG of this, so when this came out for the one step, I knew it was going to sound great, so I figured this would be the copy that I would snag for this particular title. Now, if you're not really familiar with this series, these 4 albums are really considered to be kind of among the best performances in the hard bop subgenre, so they're really good. If you like that sort of hard bop music and you haven't listened to Miles Davis, I don't know where you've been, but it's definitely worth giving them a spin. This album was recorded on May 11th in 1956 and October 23rd in 1956, really showcasing the band's, the group's incredible chemistry together. It's fantastic recordings put together. Acoustically, I like the songs on this better than I would say the Vince album. This, to me, just musically was a little bit more accessible, maybe because I tend to listen to more Miles Davis than Vince, and just the music just hits me differently. I enjoyed the tracks here on this album. I also feel like they're very similar in audio quality. The Discogs gives this one a little bit less of a rating. They give it a 4.71, so slightly less. But looking through the comments, many folks are complaining about the jacket themselves. They complain that, first off, you have like this CD size cover, so you're kind of taken away from the art appeal. This whole pull out and slip out thing with the record thing is sort of a pain in the butt to deal with. I don't disagree there. My biggest gripe, though, isn't necessarily this or the pull out. My main gripe is when you have a bunch of these on your wall and you're putting them away, so you're going to go file these now in your bookshelf or wherever you store your records, they use black on black text here, so you cannot see really well which album you're going to pull out, which makes it really difficult. I wish they would carry this silver that they use for the numbering throughout the text here. I think it will make them pop more. But the way that they design these so far, like, this is not something I'm going to put out to display. So I'm going to put it in my bookshelf, file with the rest of the records, with the rest of the Miles Davis records. But it's going to be hard over time. I mean, I know what this album is right now, but, you know, a year, 2 years, 3 years from now, I'm going to forget what exactly pressing this is. It's just going to be this sort of black spine sitting out. So I wish they would do something a little bit different there to make it easy for folks. That is limited to 5,000. This was number 386. Moving on to getting out of jazz, getting into some rock. Now, these next two titles, they're from Analog Productions. They're Atlantic 75. I'm a subscriber of this series, and I got to tell you, I don't think I got a bad record from this series yet. All of these records sound phenomenal, so I'm just going to get that right out of the way. In many cases, they're becoming my definitive copies in my collection. Now, there are certain cases where I like maybe a different pressing or different take on the album. None of these albums sound bad at all. They are very dynamic, large sounds stage, great instrument separation. You can spotlight Likely Dream. So if you haven't already given the Atlantic 75 a try, I highly recommend it. You don't have to be a subscriber to the series. You can go buy these records a la carte if you like. The subscriber, if there's even any available, just basically gives you a numbered edition. So if you're a subscriber, you get a number. Mine is 361 is my number. So all of my records from the AP75 have number 361 on them, which is kind of cool. So this one here is the Foreigner 4. This has some really kick butt rock classics. You have Urgent. Everybody knows the song Urgent. Urgent. I don't sing, so forgive me. And then of course you got Jukebox Hero. That's on here as well. Fantastic lineup here of songs. I gotta be honest, Urgent and Jukebox Hero, best I ever heard them was on this copy. And it's no wonder, I mean, musically, this is just a great album, and it's no wonder why it's a multi-platinum album to begin with. But it's a fantastic sounding album. You can't really go wrong with it. Cogs gives it a 4.7. I would agree with that. I think it's you know, to me, it's the best I've ever heard that album sound. The second AP75 I got for you is the Stone Temple Pilots. This is Purple. You know, this album itself really solidified STP in the place of the whole kind of grunge movement, with tracks like Interstate Love Song becoming iconic. And I gotta tell you, Interstate Love Song, in my opinion, I know some people are going to be like, oh, of course you're going to say that because it's the mainstream song. No, hear me out. Interstate Love Song to me is my favorite STP song, but it's not the studio version. I really love the acoustic version they did. I don't know if it was an MTV Unplugged or what the session was, but they have an acoustic version of Interstate Love Song that to me is just one of the best. It's one of my favorite songs of all time. Definitely my favorite song from STP. So if you're not familiar with the acoustic version of STP, maybe you just kind of stumbled across your music because some of the more recent reissues of them, go seek that version out. Tell me what you think. Cogs gives this a near perfect score of 4.93. I will tell you, I have a couple pressings of this Purple album. I even have the different version that came out a little bit earlier. I can't remember if it was earlier this year or later last year, but it was part of an Atlantic 75 reissue as well. This one, to me, is by far the go-to. I think the 45 RPM format really opens up the grooves here, allows for better dynamics. It's just a fantastic record. Really enjoyed it. Another kind of rock record here. This is part of the Rolling Stones 500. I've been working my way of collecting what I feel are the definitive presses of every Rolling Stones Top 500 record. And some of these I already have other pressings of, this one included. The sonics were a little bit off, or I felt like I could get more by going to a different pressing. So I've been on this art of at least having one definitive copy of every of the Rolling Stones Top 500 album. And then my hopes are for the channel is maybe one day walk you through what my choices were. I think it'll be cool to kind of break it down into like a series where maybe I show you, 20, 25 albums at a time and just talk to you about the pressings and maybe why I chose those ones. But anyway, this is Al Stewart's Year of the Cat. You got the title track, Year of the Cat, which is one of his most recognizable hits. It's got a very cinematic feel to it. If you're not familiar, go ahead and play it. I will tell you, I feel like that track, to me, is a little bit different than the rest of the makeup on this album, but this is a stellar album regardless. This is the MoFi pressing of this particular record here. It sounds phenomenal. It's got amazing dynamics, wide soundstage. I feel like I'm on repeat here, but I mean, all of the, this is 5 audiophile pressings in a row. What do you expect? Of course you're going to hear that it sounds phenomenal because they're all audiophile pressings. On the cogs, 4.6 on this one. I would tell you, I feel like that's a fair rating. I would give it a 4.5 for me, but a 4.6 is close enough on how it is. I have no desire to find a replacement, by the way. To me, unless somebody comments on this video and says, nope, I have the MoFi and this version's better, I'll go seek it out. But to me, that is a huge step up from an older pressing that I have. I'm really happy with it. It sounds phenomenal. I found it at a fair price. That I got at Needle in the Groove in San Jose when I was traveling to California. A fantastic record store, by the way. I've talked about them before. I have an opportunity, usually a couple times a year, to get out to California. I always try to stop at Needle in the Groove when I'm there. Fantastic record store. Got that album there, fair price. It was in their audiophile section. They actually have an audiophile section, and they also have these rare find sections, and then they have these records against the wall, one of which I bought, and I'm going to show you in a minute. But before we get there, this is another album I picked up from Needle in the Groove. This one, so I've shared with y'all before, I mean, I kind of grew up in where 90s music was really the thing that I would listen to. I've been trying to collect all of these like reminiscent 90s nostalgic albums, which is quite horrible thing to do, by the way. It is a brutal process because either they didn't press it on vinyl or they did press it, but it was limited qualities, and if you want an OG, it's expensive of all get out, and you have to kind of wait for a repress. This particular one I've never seen in a while before. I saw it in Needle in a Groove. It was still sealed, and it's a limited edition, super limited edition, and I just had to grab it. It was an instant grab, instant buy for me, and that's Soul Asylum, Let Your Dim Light Shine. It has the iconic top 20 hit Misery on here, which became a staple for the band. They played it in all their live shows. I remember at a time you would hear Runaway Train from their Gravediggers Union album, and you would hear Misery from this album almost on the radio on a daily basis, right? Like they were the 2 top Soul Asylum songs that really got the band's attention, I think, globally. I would definitely say here in the US. And this particular pressing is the Down in the Valley pressing. It's limited to 300 copies. It's on a beautiful seafoam green pressing, and it sounds wonderful. It really does sound wonderful. I would say it's equivalent to maybe a Rhino Hi-Fi pressing from an acoustic standpoint, like from a sound standpoint. It really is that good. I'm very happy with it. Cogs gives it a perfect score of 5 out of 5. I'm going to disagree. I think it's probably more like a 4.5 out of 5, just like the other audiophile records we talked about, which is very impressive in its own right because this isn't an audiophile pressing at any means. But I do feel like there's this thing when you have these ultra rare pressings, 300 pressings, 200 pressings, 500 pressings, that folks tend to give them perfect scores, regardless of how they sound. You see this a lot with like ERC records. It's hard to find anything wrong with an ERC record. And I think what happens is folks know that this is a rare record. So they know it's going to hold tremendous value if anybody wants to buy this on the aftermarket. Even more so if they say it sounds phenomenal. So I think people who are looking just to flip this record are just give it a 5 rating to boost up the score. So people that want to get their hands on it aren't, you're not going to pay double or triple the price. You're going to pay 4 or 5 times the price, if not more, because not only is it limited, but it's the best, pressing. I think that's the thing. I think it's a little bit BS, to be honest with you. There's no way that album's better. Like, when I think about a 5, it's a perfect record. It's a record I'm going to go demo my equipment with to show off what vinyl can do. That's not going to be the album I'm going to grab. I have plenty of other albums here that I think sound better than that album. Is that a great sounding album? Have I ever heard another version of Let Your Dim Light Shine better than that one? No, I haven't. To be honest, I haven't. I haven't heard one better than that one. However, that doesn't mean it's a perfect 5 to me. It's not it's not a demo record that I'm going to go grab, and that's to me maybe you feel different. That's what I think a 5 record is. So I'm not going to get on too much of a tangent on that. I think I wasted enough time, but I am curious on your thoughts here. Do you feel people in COGS kind of artificially inflate the ratings of some of these records to boost up the cost of them, giving them a perfect 5 just because they're limited edition? And do you feel that a 5 really should be reserved for like your top of the top, like the albums that sound better than no other album? I'm kind of curious to know how your take on that. All right, this is the last record I have to share with you from my trip to California, and then we're going to get back into some other things here. This one was behind the wall of the register. The wall of the register. I've actually grabbed a couple of these records in the past. They tend to be ultra rare. What's really cool about being in California that you don't see here in North Carolina is there's a lot of hip-hop records and older like 90s hip-hop and kind of 80s, late 80s hip-hop records. And this is one of them. This is actually a little bit of a historic reference as well. If you're familiar with what was going on in Los Angeles back, 30, 40 years ago, you had the Bloods and the Crips, and they were at odds with each other. They would literally just kill each other just because of the colors that they would wear. And there was a point of time where they tried to show a little bit of unity. There was a lot of other things going on that were just more important than the fighting between the Bloods and the Crips. And part of that effort was coming out with this. This is Bloods and the Crips Bangin' on Wax. This is from 1993. And it is split on 2 sides. You have the B side and the C side standing for Bloods and the Crips. They didn't go with A and B because then the Crips would have been left out, I suppose. But this was really a pioneering project that brought these rival gang members together to create some music, mastered well, it's pressed well. The songs in here really just reflect the tensions and the realities of street life in the early 90s, especially on the West Coast in California. What's also a little bit interesting is that all these members you see here, don't quote me on this, but like all but 2 here are actually dead. Most of them due to gang-related activities. These were real gangsters, if you will. What is also neat is that the guy at the record store said, I can't quote this, I wasn't there when it happened, but said that one of these band members actually came into the store, saw the album, pointed himself out and said, "That's me." If that was really true and there was some validity to that, I would have loved to see this signed. If I was there in the store when this happened, I was buying this record, I'd be like, "Can you please sign it?" I thought that was an opportunity where they could have got a little bit more value out of here by having it signed by one of the members, especially since most of them are dead. I thought that would be cool. If you're not familiar with this, by the way, there's 2 tracks to check out. On the Blood side is the Peru Love. On the Crip side, it's Steady Dippin'. See what I did there? No matter what colors you wear, you have a song you can go listen to. But both of those, I believe, have music videos to them. They should be available for you to grab, so you should be able to go ahead on YouTube. Peru Love or Steady Dipping from Bloods and Crips is a way to get yourself into it. This is a 4.53 on Discogs. It does sound phenomenal, by the way. It sounds as good as most of my professionally done 90s hip-hop records from some of the big names like Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, etc., Tupac. The album does sound phenomenal. I would give it a solid, 4.5 as well. I think that's a solid rating for that record. It really does sound great, which is nice because a lot of these hip-hop projects from the 90s, some of them didn't have the budgets or backings from big labels, and they kind of sound like a a cassette tape converted to a record. This is not the case. You could tell this was mastered for the record. It was done well, produced well, solid piece of history here. Glad to add it to the collection. Super proud to have that one. Moving on to something a little bit different, something you put on at late at night when you're looking to relax, and this is Nightmares on Wax from LateNightTales. If you're not familiar with LateNightTales, these are very carefully curated mix of tracks that kind of define this down tempo and sort of chill mode. They asked these bands to come in to put together the track list, so this one was actually put together by Nightmares on Wax. You got Joe Dookie and DJ Fetchy here. You got Ian Brown, Tony Allen, the Rootsmen, King Koba, Quincy Jones, Cortex, Tom Scott, Search, Large Professor, Tranquility Base, Mad Dr. X, Dusty Springfield. Spooky is on here. By the way, the best pressing of Spooky I've heard is actually on this album, so super excited to have it because I love that song and I'm so happy. A lot of tender and care was put into transferring that song to this particular pressing. It's my go-to version of Spooky. You also have Focus on here, Nightmares on Wax, of course, and then each album from the series ends with a spoken word. This one was by Brian Blessed. This is a limited edition. They'll make 1,000 of them on white vinyl. Sounds really good. It's a 4.92 on the Cogs. Again, I don't think it's near audiophile good. I give it if I was on Discogs, I'd give it a 4. But it's, a good 4.5 would probably be efficient rating on this. It sounds good. There's really no noise. Large soundstage. It does sound nice. It's a nice addition to, to the collection. I'm glad to have it. Next up is from an iconic band, punk rock band. You're probably going to know who this is, but, I had to grab it. This is part of the Rocktober Rhino release, and this is Stooges' self-titled album, which is widely regarded as one of the foundational albums of punk rock, really influencing countless bands that followed the Stooges here. This is on whiskey color vinyl. It includes, 1969, I Want to Be Your Dog and No Fun. Really great pressing as well. Sounds wonderful. Cogs of 4.77. It does sound really good. No complaints there. Gonna get into some new music now with you. Some 3 albums of kind of like new releases, and then we'll shift back into some older stuff, and then we'll get ready to wrap some of this stuff up here in a moment. So let's just go ahead and dive into it. This is Nathaniel Rateliff and the Night Sweats. This is the latest album, South of Here, which shows kind of Rateliff kind of taking more of exploring soulful and introspective sounds compared to some of his earlier work, which is more of like an upbeat tempo. I gotta tell you, when I listened to this album, and even the one that came just before it, I'm not terribly impressed. I don't know where Nathaniel's going. Maybe he's getting older, doesn't have the energy, maybe he's changing his tune. But when I listened to this album and the last album he produced, none of them have songs that really inspire me or take me away. I'm not trying to rip here. I was an early Nathaniel fan. I love his earlier work. I think I just like the more upbeat work from him. This does not have really laid on me like some of his other earlier albums has. When I listen to it, I don't recall anything coming out of here that was like a pop-off track for me where I was like, oh, I really love it and dig that song. I'm going to go ahead and make sure I replay it or put it on my, my streaming list, so when I'm driving in a car and stuff, it comes up in my playlist. I don't think I grabbed anything like that. Audio-wise, Cogs gives it a 4.75. I thought it was okay. I would give it a solid 4. This is part of the Magnolia release, by the way, so it comes in a special colored vinyl. It's part of the Music Club. Again, I think some of the exclusivity of it brings up the scoring on that one. The next new album to talk to you about is Gracie Abrams. This is The Secret of Us, her latest album. This is where she kind of continues to try to establish herself as sort of a powerful voice in the pop genre here. She's getting a little bit more personal on the lyrics. This is another album, just quite frankly, just didn't hit me as well as Good Riddance. I really liked Good Riddance, but this one, again, nothing really more memorable. I did order this from her website, so I got the GA signature there at the bottom. I was super excited to get this album because surprisingly, which caught me off guard, I really liked Good Riddance. but when I played this, it just didn't resonate with me. Now I understand that I'm not her target audience here, but I'm going to just, I'm going to be bold to say when you look at the album cover and kind of her hair is a mess here and just not really well put together, if you will, and she looks like she's half drunk and falling asleep on the back, I feel like the songs to me were as messy as the album cover. I think the album cover is a good portrayal of the music, and I know I just probably pissed off some Gracie Abrams fans. It just didn't, I don't know, it just didn't resonate with me as I would hope it to resonate. Sound-wise, it's a 4.75 from the Cogs. I don't know. I would give it a 4. I don't think it was, crazy good. I think some people are rating it high because this is signature edition, and some people are just Gracie Abrams fans that are never going to give her a bad rating. Okay, next up, the last new artist, and then we'll get back into things that you know. This is Lindsey Stirling's Duality. This was also, you could see a signed copy from her. This album here, if you're not familiar with Lindsey Stirling, by the way, she plays a classical violin, but then mixes that in with this like electronic dance music. So she has a very distinctive style. The music's supposed to make you feel energetic and make you want to dance and etc. This is her 7th studio album, by the way. And, this is another one where I just felt like Lindsey's earlier work was very refreshing and inspiring and energetic, and there was a lot of tracks that I played on repeat for years and still have on my playlist today. Nothing popped off on me on this one. 3 albums in a row that I just new artists I was looking forward to, and I was left a little bit disappointed. Now, I will say in the defense of all 3 of these artists that when I did listen to them, I listened to them all the same day. I listened to the Stirling, the Abrams, and the Nathaniel albums same day, so maybe something was just off with me that day. Maybe I was just in a bad mood, or maybe I had something going on. That could be it. Maybe that's why none of this really resonated with me, but I think when you're in that emotional state, if that is the case, if you're in that emotional state of vulnerability, music should hit you even more. And I didn't get any of that with any of these songs. I do want to go back and listen to each one of these and have a more focused listening, refresh listening session. So hopefully I'll have a chance to do that here shortly. But for now, I have so many new things that I'm trying to get through. I'll eventually cycle back for these at a later date. This is weird because I did order the signature version from her website, which came smeared, which is a little bit of a bummer, but I guess it's real. But the way they did it is they sent you the full album on its own, not signed, and then they just sent you a signed cover. A little bit weird way of doing it. The other thing is that was a little bit of a bummer for me because I didn't love the music per se, was that I also ordered the Barnes & Noble version. I ordered this ages ago, completely forgot that I pre-ordered the Barnes & Noble edition until it arrived at my doorstep. I'm like, what did I order from Barnes & Noble? And I open it up and it's this. I'm like, oh, I already have one from Lindsey.com. I do have 2 copies of this. I think sonically they sound about the same. They're rated at 4.5 on Cogs, about that. I think this is 4, and again, musically, not my favorite album. If I'm going to go reach for Lindsey Stirling, I'm definitely going to be reaching for an earlier album in her discography. Okay, moving forward to some classic rock again, going with the Talking Heads' Naked, probably the most underrated album from the band. This really sees them exploring this world beat and kind of African rhymes put into their music, marking a bit of a departure from their earlier work. So this is a unipack style, opens up from the center here. Got to be careful on these because a lot of times if you put a lot of wear and tear, these can rip or worn out, or you can get kind of that split seam look on the side here. It's a great sounding album, no complaints. It's not the most favorite album from people who like Talking Heads. I think it's one of those like almost cult classics. It's not a mainstream classic. I think this kind of gained a little bit more relevancy as it aged. I really like the album. I don't know. Cogs gives it a 4.75. I think a 4.5 is pretty decent on it. Yeah, it's a good album. I don't know. Maybe you should check it out if you like the Talking Heads and haven't given it a try. See what you think of Naked. Moving on to something that you probably know is Starship, Knee Deep in the Hoopla. This album has some heat, man. First off, we got We Built This City. You know the song, We Built This City on Rock and Roll. Told you I can't sing. And then it also has Sarah, which is also another great song. I think these are quintessential 80s anthem songs. Fun album, man. This is really great. This is a limited edition on red vinyl, pressed at Third Man. It is limited to 2,000 copies. It's a really, really just stellar album altogether, and I will say it sounds wonderful. Now, Cogs does give this a 5 out of 5. I think we're seeing the same mojo here with limited press, so let's bump up the rating. But I will tell you, that is pretty equivalent to a Rhino hi-fi pressing to me. It really does sound that good, very dynamic, good soundstage. I've never heard We Built This City or Sarah as well as I heard it on that album. So I'm super impressed by it. I'm very happy to add it to the collection, so I'm glad that I picked it up when I did. Speaking of Rhino hi-fi, how about some Bad Company? This is from the Rhino Hi-Fi series, the one I keep referencing. And the reason I keep referencing him, by the way, is because we have a lot of hi-fi records out there now that cost $100, $125, $150, some of them even $400, $500 for their pressings. And Rhino's doing this for what, 50, 60 bucks per album? It might even be cheaper than that. I don't remember. I hate to say that. But I don't remember. They're fairly accessible is where I'm getting at, especially for the quality. They're phenomenal records. They sound wonderful. This is another series that you just can't seem to go wrong with. All of these records just sound awesome. And if you have a chance to pick them up, I highly, highly recommend you do. They're all, for the most part, they're all limited edition. So out of 5,000, this is number 46. I think they're starting to reissue these now without the limited numbering, and they're selling them at local record stores. So you can either pick it up at your local record store unnumbered or pick them up from Rhino website when they come out and get a numbered edition. I don't know how much you care about having a numbered edition. I bought these before they were available at the local, right? So for me, this is what I got, okay? So this album, Bad Company, self-titled, is kind of hailed as one of the, defining releases of classic rock. It features timeless tracks on here. You have Can't Get Enough, which is the opening track. Rocksteady's also another great track. I mean, there's just so many amazing songs on here. Acoustically, it's a wonderful album. It sounds great. It's what rock should sound like. It's rated in 4.86 on the Cogs. I tell you, it is a phenomenal record. I think that is one that if somebody came over and says, I love classic rock, it is an album that I would end up pulling out as a demo album. So a high 4 rating to me is spot on. We also have Yes, Relayer. This is an interesting album from, I'm holding it upside down, ain't I? This is an interesting album from Yes, by the way. This is, so there's a lot of complex compositions on here. It is a standout album on the the band's catalog. It's got the track The Gates of Delirium, which quite frankly is a 21-minute and 55-second long song. It is the entire side A of this album, and it's almost, I don't even know how to explain it. The album does sound phenomenal, by the way. It's just a different style of music for Yes. At least that's my take on it. It's just a little bit different, right? You have an anthem, right? 21 minutes. There's a lot of things you can do in 21 minutes, right? This is just drop this on and just close your eyes and just escape, I guess. I don't know. But it sounds great. It's these, by the way, these Rhino things, they're like 180 gram. They're cut usually from the original master tapes. Kevin Gray, I think, has been doing all of them. I might be wrong on that, but I think Kevin Gray's done all of them. He's at Coherent Audio. They're pressed at optimal, so they're fantastic pressings as well. And this one, just like Bad Company, sounds great. Cogs gives it a 4.7, so a little bit less. I think they're about equally rated. I think that they both sound really, really, really great. Speaking of great sounding records, you really can't go wrong with anything released from Acoustic Sound Series. This is a little bit of their budget audiophile series, if you will, but all these records just sound phenomenal, including this one. This is Ella Fitzgerald. Ella Fitzgerald sings songs from the soundtrack Let No Man Write My Epitaph. This is a phenomenal sounding record. A lot of great songs on here. Black Coffee, Angel Eyes, I Cried for You, I Can't Give You Anything But Love, September Song, One for My Baby. This album is just banging. It's absolutely stellar album. Highly, highly recommended. If you like Ella Fitzgerald and you haven't picked up this album, you're missing out. I think that this is a fantastic addition to add to your collection. What's also cool about this album is that it uses the original plate work from classic records. So that was what was used on this acoustic sound series. So you're getting a phenomenal metalwork, you're getting phenomenal pressing, it sounds great. Cogs gives it a 4.82. I think it is a stellar record. I would give it a high 4 rating as well. So keeping it inside of the jazz world, we got Al Di Meola. This is Cielo y Terra. It is a fantastic album, really representing Al's phenomenal, exceptional guitar work mixed in with Latin influences. It's a fun record. Acoustically, it's a good record. It's a good pressing. It's not a great pressing. Cogs gives it a 3.88. I would give it a 4. I think it's a good sounding record. It's just not great. But I think that sometimes goes to the way that it was recorded, and I think that was the case with this one. I don't think this was really recorded in an audiophile way. I could be wrong on that. This is an original pressing from 1985. So the outside just looks a little bit warm, but inside looks brand new. And I'm happy to add it. I really like Al Di Meola's stuff. I've been collecting his catalog. He's got a lot of fantastic records, and that's one that I was actually pretty happy to find out in the wild and add to my collection. Okay, wrapping us up with a little bit of country, and that is going to be Sturgill Simpson's Cutting Grass Volume 2. This is the Cowboy Arms Sessions, and this album is really returned to Sturgill Simpson's bluegrass roots. Kind of having his stripped down acoustic versions of his songs. Got a lot of great tracks here, by the way. And this is such a fun album. Look at this album cover. It is a fun looking album cover. It's got a texture to it because it's actually lights in the dark. This is a glow in the dark cover, which is just really cool. The pressing itself is beautiful. Look at this beautiful kind of marbled blue. Right, just really cool, and I love how it has like this saw in the center, kind of still bringing that theme of cutting grass and just, you know, being a good old country boy brought into it. I gotta tell you though, I was not impressed with the quality of this pressing. It is a gorgeous packaging, fun packaging. The record looks great, but this is one case where colored vinyl just didn't do this justice. A lot of surface noise. I ran it through the ultrasonic 2 times. I also tried dry brushing it as well. And I got to tell you, I could not get the pops and clicks to come out of this one. It is a noisy record. I also, I have a sugar cube. The sugar cube has the ability to filter out pops and clicks, which allows you to play a lot of older records where you just can't get those pops and clicks out through cleaning. So that's nice. It works phenomenal. It's one of the best devices I have in my collection because it really allows me to listen to some older music without the interruption or the annoyance of the pops and clicks. But even that struggled. It got most of them out, probably got about 90% of them out, but it didn't get them all out. There was still a couple that snuck through. So if this machine that can basically play any record clean can't get the pops and click out of this one, it's got to be bad. So I'm not that happy with it. And ironically, people rated this a 4.43. But if you look at the comments, I am not alone here. There are so many people complaining that this is a noisy record. So I don't know how this gets a 4.3 and the Al Di Meola gets a 3.88. It just blows me away. Sometimes I just don't understand these ratings, folks. But with that said, if you want to learn more about the Sugar Cube and how that works and how it takes out the pops and clicks, let me know. I'm happy to do a video about it. Kind of explaining to you how it works and if there's any audible difference other than just subtracting out the noise from a record. I'm happy to get into that for you. But that's all I have for this episode. I hope you really enjoyed this vinyl haul. If you made it this far and you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. I think you really enjoy this content, obviously, so go ahead and do that. And while you go ahead and find that subscribe button, I'm going to go ahead and make myself a cup of coffee, find some more records to share for you, and I'll see you on the next video.